I'm Hannah Lawson, 34, standing in my Charlotte condo, pregnant, proud, and ready to celebrate our new home with family. But before I could even thank everyone for coming, my sister Vanessa grabbed the microphone and said, "I've spoken to a lawyer. As of tonight, this house is mine. Grab a cup of coffee, settle into your favorite spot, and let's share this story together." Before we begin, drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how our stories bring people together from all over. Now, relax and enjoy. I'm Hannah Lawson, 34 years old, middle school librarian, 7 months pregnant. And until recently, I thought I was living the dream. We'd just moved into our first real home, a 2-bedroom condo in uptown Charlotte, just a few blocks from the light rail, with a little balcony that overlooked the skyline. It wasn't huge, but it was ours. I remember standing in the empty living room the day we moved in, my hand resting on my stomach, thinking, this is it. This is where everything finally begins. Kyle, my husband, had his arms wrapped around me from behind. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Welcome home, babe." That moment felt real, safe, and I let myself believe it. We'd scrimped and saved for years. Every spare dollar from my library job, every tax return, every weekend Kyle spent working side gigs just to get our down payment together. The place wasn't fancy, but the wide windows let in so much light in the mornings. I already had plans for the nursery, soft green walls, a white rocker by the window. I could see our baby girl's tiny socks in a laundry basket, her books lined up on a shelf. It felt like a future you could touch. So when Kyle suggested we throw a housewarming party to celebrate, I didn't hesitate. I texted our family, picked out finger foods, even made a playlist. It was going to be one of those memories you keep forever. I should have known better. The first strange moment came 2 days before the party, when my sister Vanessa called. "Need me to bring anything?" she asked. "Maybe some wine?" I offered. "Or your pasta salad, Kyle's obsessed with it." There was a pause. Then she said, "Actually, I was thinking I'd come early, help you get everything ready." That was new. Vanessa isn't the type who offers help. She's more the type to critique your curtain choices or ask if you're sure that's the best crib on the market. Still, I said sure. Why not? She's my sister. The next day, she showed up an hour earlier than she said she would. Arms full of bags, a look on her face like she owned the place. I was folding baby clothes in the living room when she walked in and dropped her purse on the counter like she lived there. "Wow," she said, looking around. "This place is cute. Cute. Not warm, not beautiful, not cozy. Cute." She walked through the kitchen, pulling open cabinets like she was inspecting them. "You'll need to update these eventually," she said, tapping one with her manicured nail. "They're going to start peeling in a year, Max." I blinked. "I mean, it's not our forever home." She raised an eyebrow. "Isn't it?" I let it go. I was too tired to argue, and my back was already starting to ache. While I arranged appetizers, Vanessa moved into the living room with her phone and began snapping pictures. Not of us, of the furniture, the layout, even the closet doors. I asked, "What are you doing?" "Oh," she said casually, "just sending ideas to a friend of mine. She's in real estate. Loves home setups like this." Again odd. But Vanessa's always been like this. A little nosy, a little superior. Still, she's family. I figured maybe it was her weird way of showing support. Kyle got home later that night with takeout. He walked in, set the bag on the counter, and gave Vanessa a tired half-smile. "Hey, Ness." She kissed him on the cheek. Not unusual. They've always been close, since college. That's how I met Kyle, actually through her. But something about the way he barely looked at me, it landed wrong. Like I was the outsider in my own home. After dinner, I sat on the couch with my swollen feet propped up, trying to relax. Vanessa wandered into the spare room, what was going to be the nursery, and stood silently in the doorway. "You'll want blackout curtains in here," she said. "This morning light will mess up her sleep schedule." I nodded, not really responding. She disappeared down the hallway, and I closed my eyes. A few minutes later, I realized it had gone quiet. Too quiet. I stood up, waddled toward the hallway, and stopped dead in the doorway of our bedroom. Vanessa was sitting on the edge of my bed, holding the mortgage packet. My mortgage packet. I froze. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" She looked up like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Just reading through. I was curious about your rate. I might buy soon." You could have asked, I said, my throat suddenly dry. She smiled. Well, your family. What's mine is yours, right? I didn't respond. And I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I found something even worse. Vanessa hadn't just read my mortgage papers. She'd made a copy. If you'd told me 5 years ago that my sister would one day try to steal my home, I would have laughed in your face. Because for most of my life, I thought Vanessa was just bossy. I'm 2 years younger. Growing up in Raleigh, she always played the older sister role to the extreme, cutting my bangs, because mine were uneven, picking out my clothes for school picture day, deciding what team we played on at recess. She wasn't mean, not exactly, just always in charge. And when I pushed back, Mom would smile and say, "Let your sister help, she means well." That phrase haunted my childhood. Let your sister help. Like when she intercepted my college application essay and rewrote the entire thing behind my back to make it stronger. Or when I brought a guy home junior year and she accidentally told him I'd had a crush on someone else. Vanessa always had a way of doing the wrong thing while making it seem like she was just looking out for me. And I got used to swallowing my irritation to keep the peace. So when she started showing up more often at the condo, I tried to see it the same way I always had. She's just excited, I told myself. She's just trying to help. But deep down, something felt off. It started small. A few days after she'd copied our mortgage papers, I came home from a long shift at the library and found Vanessa already inside the condo. Not knocking, not waiting, just inside. She was sitting at our dining table sipping coffee. My coffee. I stood frozen in the doorway. Grocery bags digging into my wrists. "How did you?" I started. "Oh!" She waved me off. "Kyle gave me a key. Said you wouldn't mind." My stomach turned. He never mentioned that. She walked over, took a bag out of my hands like she owned the place. "You shouldn't be lifting heavy things right now, Hannah. You're 7 months along. Let me do that." I didn't say anything. I was too tired to argue. Later that night, I asked Kyle about it. "You gave Vanessa a key?" He was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone. He didn't even look up. "She's helping out," he mumbled. "You know how she is." I sat on the edge of the bed, my back stiff. "Kyle, she made a copy of our mortgage documents. She's walking around like this place is hers." "She's just being Vanessa," he said with a shrug. "Don't stress yourself out over it." I wanted to scream, but instead I lay down beside him, trying to ignore the tight knot growing in my chest. The next morning, I found sticky notes on the fridge. "Swap out milk brand. This one curdles too fast. Consider painting the kitchen. Too dark for baby photos. Talk to Kyle about refinancing while rates are low." Every one of them written in Vanessa's handwriting. Every one of them making it painfully clear that she didn't see herself as a guest anymore. I flashed back to our childhood bathroom, Vanessa, labeling her side of the mirror with sticky notes too. "Don't touch my mascara. Move your toothbrush. It drips. Why are your tampons here?" It wasn't until college that I realized most sisters don't live like they're in a corporate merger. But back then, it was easier to play along than to push back. Now though, this wasn't a shared bathroom. This was my home. Or at least, I thought it was. Trisha noticed something was off before I even told her. We were walking through Freedom Park on a Saturday afternoon, the leaves just starting to turn. I was trying to relax, sipping a smoothie, but my stomach was in knots. "You're quiet," she said, peering at me over her sunglasses. "Just tired," I lied. She didn't buy it. "Did Kyle say something?" "No," I said quickly. "Not him. It's Vanessa." Her eyebrows rose. "What about her?" I hesitated. Then it all spilled out: Vanessa's visits, the key, the documents, the notes. The way she looked at the condo like it was already hers. Trisha listened in silence, then stopped walking. "Hannah, that's not normal." "I know," I whispered. "She's inserting herself into your life like she has a stake in it. Like she's planning something." I looked away, my throat tight. "I don't want to believe that." "I know you don't," she said. "But you need to start paying attention." That night, I lay in bed while Kyle showered. The ceiling fan ticked overhead. Our baby kicked lightly beneath my ribs. I couldn't shake what Trisha had said. I got up, walked to the hallway, and looked at the front door. There were only 2 keys to that door. One, with me. One, with Vanessa. That alone should have been enough to keep me up, but it wasn't. Because sometime around 1 a.m., I heard a faint click, a pause, then the sound of the door opening. Not slamming, not knocking, just opening. Footsteps padded across the hardwood floor. Measured. Quiet. Familiar. Vanessa. I lay frozen in bed. And that was the night I knew Vanessa wasn't just visiting anymore. She thought she lived here. Sunday mornings used to be my favorite. I loved waking up to the smell of French toast. The way sunlight spilled into the kitchen. How Kyle would pull me close and kiss my cheek while the coffee brewed. But this Sunday felt different before I even got out of bed. There was tension in the air. The kind you can't see, but you can feel in your chest like pressure before a storm. I'd just pulled on one of Kyle's oversized t-shirts when I heard her voice in the kitchen. Vanessa. Again. She wasn't supposed to be here. I waddled down the hallway, one hand on my lower back, and stopped at the kitchen doorway. Vanessa stood barefoot, pouring herself a second cup of coffee using my favorite mug, the one with the baby elephants. Kyle sat at the bar stool, scrolling through his phone like it was just another day. "Oh good," Vanessa said brightly when she saw me. "We were just talking about the condo." I forced a smile. "Were we?" I would have never in fall of when his left make how. Vanessa waved her hand, brushing past the sarcasm. "We were saying you should think about refinancing now that the market's shifted. You're locked into a higher rate, and that could cost you long term." I blinked. "I'm not refinancing anything. We just closed a few months ago." Kyle spoke up without looking at me. "It wouldn't hurt to consider it, hon." The way he said it, casual, dismissive, tightened something in my chest. I leaned on the counter. "How would you even know what rate we got, Vanessa?" She smiled, sipping her coffee. "Well, you left the docs out the other day, remember?" My stomach turned. "They were in a file drawer." She didn't flinch. "Exactly. Not locked. And hasn't been them." We sat down for brunch. Vanessa had brought fresh bagels, of course, and she kept up the commentary. "You'll want to retile the bathroom eventually," she said. "That grout is already yellowing. Bad sealant job." I bit into my bagel to avoid responding. "And the nursery." She glanced toward the second bedroom. "It's cute, but you might want to rethink the color scheme. Pale green can feel cold in the winter." Kyle chuckled under his breath. I snapped my head toward him. "You think this is funny?" He looked up, surprised. "What? She's just trying to help." "There's helping," I said quietly. "And then there's moving in." I'm self. Vanessa's face hardened for a second. Just a flicker, before she smiled again. "Don't be so sensitive, Hannah. You're pregnant. Stress isn't good for the baby." There it was. "You're pregnant." The phrase that meant, you're not thinking clearly. Let us handle it. I set my fork down. I'm not incapable just because I'm carrying a child. Vanessa reached over and patted my hand like I was a toddler having a tantrum. "No one's saying that, sweetie. We're just trying to take some of the weight off your shoulders." But it wasn't about help. It was about control. It always had been. After brunch, Vanessa headed out, saying she'd swing by next week to drop off curtain samples. She will set a day to stand. I didn't ask for curtain samples. Kyle stood at the sink, rinsing plates like nothing had happened. "Why does she have a key, Kyle?" He sighed. "We've been over this." "No, you brushed it off. That's not the same thing." He wiped his hands and leaned on the counter, avoiding my eyes. "Look, she's your sister. She cares about you. About us." I stepped closer. "Did you tell her about our finances?" "What?" "Our mortgage. Our down payment. Our savings. Did you tell her anything?" He paused. "Just long enough." "I might have mentioned a few things," she asked. My heart dropped. She asked, "And you just handed over our private information?" "Armang, en our du armang. And a rain tapen be billen de fire. And evendasi is in connection pace of the dest." She said she knew someone who could help us get better terms. I shook my head. "Kyle, she's acting like this place belongs to her. And you're letting her." "She's trying to help, Hannah." I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of the man I married, but I didn't find him. That night, Kyle fell asleep early, out cold by 10, like nothing had happened. I couldn't sleep. My back ached. My brain wouldn't stop spinning. I got up and padded into the living room, wrapped in a blanket. The condo dark and silent around me. I sat on the couch, opened Kyle's laptop. I don't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. What I found was worse than anything I'd expected. An email, from Kyle, to Vanessa. Subject line: property transfer discussion. My hand started to shake. I clicked. The body of the message was short, direct. Too direct. "Let's hold off on the paperwork until after the baby's here. She doesn't need to know yet. Just send me the revised version when you're ready." She doesn't need to know yet. The words echoed in my head. I sat there on the couch, staring at the screen, my heart racing. And that was the night I realized this wasn't about refinancing. They were planning something much, much worse. I couldn't stop staring at that email. The glow from the laptop screen painted the dark living room in cold blue light. It was almost midnight. Kyle was asleep in the bedroom, his phone charging on the nightstand, the same phone he'd been glued to every night lately. The subject line burned into my eyes. Property transfer discussion. I read the message again. And again. Each time, my stomach twisted tighter. Let's hold off on the paperwork until after the baby's here. She doesn't need to know yet. Just send me the revised version when you're ready. She doesn't need to know yet. I was she. My own husband, the man I shared a bed with, the father of my unborn child, was discussing legal paperwork behind my back with my sister, and somehow, I was the one who didn't need to know. My throat felt dry. I clicked to open the previous emails in the thread. The chain went back weeks. Vanessa had sent him PDFs labeled joint property form and revised ownership template. Her tone was polished, businesslike, even friendly. I think it's safer this way, Kyle. You know how emotional she can get right now. Once this is finalized, she'll thank us later. I could actually hear her voice saying it, that calm, patronizing tone she'd used my entire life. And his replies were even worse. You're probably right. She's been on edge lately. Let's just get it done quietly, no drama. No drama. They were planning to take my home, my security, my safe place, and still wanted to keep things drama-free. I slammed the laptop shut and pressed my hands against my face. My pulse was thudding so hard it echoed in my ears. Part of me wanted to storm into the bedroom and wake him up, scream, demand answers. But the smarter part, the part of me that had grown quieter and stronger since getting pregnant, told me not to. Not yet. If they were doing something this shady, I couldn't let them know I'd found it. I took a deep breath and reopened the laptop, my fingers trembling as I took screenshots of everything. The emails, the attachments, the timestamps. Then I copied them onto a flash drive, one I'd used at work to back up lesson plans. When it finished saving, I tucked it into a drawer beneath a stack of old tax papers, somewhere they'd never look. That's when I noticed something else. In one of the attached PDFs, the top of the page said, Ownership Agreement Lawson divided by Blake Property. Lawson was me. Blake was Vanessa's last name, not Kyle's. My breath hitched. This wasn't just a transfer. They were preparing documents listing Vanessa as the co-owner of my condo, not Kyle. Which meant whatever game they were playing, she was the one who stood to gain the most. The realization hit me like a wave of nausea. Vanessa wasn't helping. She was positioning herself. And Kyle was letting her. I sat back on the couch, one hand on my belly, the other covering my mouth. The baby kicked lightly, a tiny reassuring thump beneath my ribs. I whispered, It's okay, sweet girl. I'll protect us. I promise. But even as I said it, I felt the first sting of doubt creep in. Because how do you protect yourself from two people you've loved your whole life? I spent the next day moving through the house like a ghost. Kyle acted normal, made coffee, kissed my forehead, left for work, but I could barely look at him. Every time I saw his hands, I pictured them typing those words. Every time I heard his voice, I heard the lies underneath it. By noon, Vanessa texted, Thinking of stopping by later. Got a few ideas for the nursery. I didn't respond. I just stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then I typed back, Fine. It wasn't fine. None of it was fine. But I wanted her to come. I needed to look her in the eyes now that I knew the truth. That evening, I stood by the kitchen window watching the sunset bleed across the Charlotte skyline. The city lights were flickering to life below, cars humming in the distance. Everything looked normal. But inside, I felt like the world was splitting open. A knock echoed at the door. I froze. When I opened it, Vanessa stood there, smiling wide, holding a fabric tote bag. Evening, sis, she chirped. I brought some samples. She brushed past me before I could even reply, setting the bag on the counter. What samples? I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. Paint swatches, she said, rummaging through the bag like a kid showing off a science project. I figured if we're going to make the place feel right, we should start with the living room. Maybe something softer, like cream or dove gray. I blinked. We're going to make it feel right? She looked up at me, smile faltering for half a second before returning. Of course. I mean, it's family property now, isn't it? Might as well make it shine. Family property. The words sliced through the air like a blade. I gripped the back of a chair, forcing myself to breathe evenly. You say that like you own it. Vanessa laughed. Oh, Hannah, don't be dramatic. You know what I mean. I didn't answer. I just watched her pull out one of the swatches and hold it up against the wall, humming softly, like she'd already decided what belonged where. Like she'd already decided it was hers. That night, as she compared shades of beige, all I could see was red. Because now I knew. This wasn't just family meddling. Vanessa was rewriting my life. One document at a time. I came home from work on a Tuesday afternoon and didn't recognize my own living room. The blue throw pillows I'd carefully chosen were gone, replaced with stiff, beige ones that looked like they belonged in a staged Airbnb. The coffee table had been moved off-center. A tall snake plant sat in the corner. One I'd never seen before. And the worst part? There was a note on the kitchen counter. Thought this layout flowed better for baby's energy. V. I stood there in my work flats, still holding my purse and the takeout salad I'd picked up. Just stunned. This wasn't her home. This wasn't even our home. This was my condo. My name was on the mortgage. My savings had funded the down payment. And yet, somehow, it felt like I was the guest. I called Kyle. It went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I walked down the hallway and opened the door to the nursery. My breath caught. Vanessa had been in here too. The bassinet I'd just ordered was pushed into a corner. The mood lighting lamp I bought last weekend was gone. In its place, a box of new, unopened curtains and a gallon of paint. Soft taupe. The sticky note on the lid read, "Soothing neutral. You'll thank me later." I backed out of the room slowly, like I'd just walked into a stranger's apartment by accident, except this was mine, or at least, it used to be. The next day at work, I was on autopilot, shelving books, updating the library board, nodding through middle school gossip from a group of 8th graders. My brain was somewhere else playing over the emails, the notes, the paint swatches. At lunch, I sat at a corner table in the teacher's lounge, barely picking at my pasta salad. That's when Kendra, one of the new math teachers, sat down next to me. "I saw your sister again," she said casually. I looked up. "Where?" "Outside the condo building. I was walking my dog. She was talking to a real estate agent, I think." I blinked. "What?" "She mentioned something about co-owning the unit with you. Said she was handling upgrades while you're out on maternity." I felt the fork slip from my hand and hit the plastic container with a soft clack. Kendra tilted her head. "She doesn't really own it, right?" I smiled too quickly. "Of course not." But my chest was tight. She wasn't just playing house anymore. She was telling people she owned it. When I got home that night, Vanessa's SUV was already in the guest parking spot. Again, she wasn't even pretending to ask anymore. I found her in the living room, rearranging the bookshelf. "I moved the cookbooks down," she said. "They were too high for when you're carrying the baby. Ergonomics matter." She didn't look up. I walked straight to the kitchen, needing space. But when I opened the junk drawer to grab a notepad, I saw something tucked underneath the stack of mail. A folded piece of paper. Out of place. Curious and more than a little suspicious, I pulled it out. It was a printed PDF. A scanned document. The heading read, "Joint Banking Authorization Form." My name. Vanessa's name. Her signature. My signature. Except, I never signed this. I stared at it. The handwriting looked like mine, but it wasn't. Not quite. Too neat. Too deliberate. I flipped the paper over. Scrawled in her handwriting was a sticky note. "For record keeping. Just in case we need to show we're both financially involved." My stomach dropped. I stormed back into the living room. "What is this?" I held the paper in the air like a flag. Vanessa didn't even blink. "It's a standard co-investor form. I drafted it for transparency." "You forged my signature." She sighed, like I was being dramatic. "Hannah, come on." I traced it from a card. It's not like I was trying to hide it. I stared at her, the blood pounding in my ears. "You forged my name on a bank document." She finally looked up. "I'm just protecting both of us. You're vulnerable right now. You're overwhelmed, hormonal, not thinking straight. You don't live here," I said, voice shaking. "You don't own this place. You don't get to protect anything." She set down the book she was holding and crossed her arms. "Then why did Kyle let me in? Why did he send me the mortgage documents?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She smiled. "Exactly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter move beneath my skin. And all I could think about was that forged document. Vanessa wasn't just invading my space. She was laying a foundation, building a paper trail, trying to prove she belonged there financially, legally, socially, and Kyle was giving her every tool she needed. He hadn't come home yet. It was almost midnight. As I stared at the ceiling in the dark, one question pulsed through my head. What else has she forged? If this story touches you, drop a number 1 in the comments. Every one reminds us that these stories matter, and it gives us the motivation to keep sharing them with you. When you're pregnant, they tell you to listen to your body. Rest when you're tired. Eat when you're hungry. Trust your gut. Well, my gut was screaming. Not about the baby, about my life. About Kyle. About Vanessa. About everything that had once felt safe now hanging by a thread. So I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I called Trisha. Trisha and I met freshman year at UNC. I was studying education. She was pre-law and terrifyingly confident. She once shut down a professor who misquoted a Supreme Court case in front of 200 students. We've been best friends ever since. She's the kind of person you want in your corner when the walls start closing in. And right now, mine were caving fast. We met at our usual spot, a little retro diner just off Tryon Street. The kind with red booths and waitresses who call you honorable. Thank you for watching. Trisha slid into the booth across from me. Her hair pulled into a slick bun, glasses perched low on her nose. I hadn't even opened my mouth yet when she said, "Okay. What happened?" I blinked. "Can we order first?" "Fine," she said, waving over the server. "But if this is about Kyle, I swear to God, it's about Kyle," I muttered. We ordered coffee and fries. Comfort food. Crisis food. Then I told her everything. Not in pieces. Not filtered. All of it. Vanessa's uninvited visits. The copied mortgage documents. The emails between her and Kyle. The forged co-investor form. The rearranged furniture. The curtain samples. The real estate agent sighting. I even pulled the USB out of my purse and slid it across the table. Trisha picked it up like it was radioactive. "What's on this?" Screenshots, emails, a copy of that forged doc. Everything I could grab. She didn't speak for a while. Just stared at the drive. Then she leaned back and said, "You're sitting on a powder keg." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Do you think she's serious?" I asked. Like, do you think she's actually trying to take my home? Trisha looked me dead in the eyes. "She's already doing it." The waitress dropped off our drinks, and we sipped in silence for a moment. Finally, Trisha pulled out her laptop. "We're going to start a folder," she said. "We're calling it Project Stop Vanessa." I almost laughed. Almost. She opened a new folder on her desktop and dragged a copy of the USB files in. "From now on, you save everything. Texts, voicemails, screenshots. I don't care if it seems small. If she makes a weird comment, write it down." I nodded, my brain trying to keep up. "Also," she added, "start documenting every time she enters your condo. Time, date, what she did. If she leaves notes, take pictures. If she moves furniture, take video. We need a paper trail." "But she has a key," I said. "Kyle gave it to her. That doesn't give her legal permission to act like a co-owner." "What about Kyle?" I asked. "He's involved." "Honestly?" Trisha sighed. "He's either spineless, complicit, or both. But right now, the biggest threat is Vanessa. She's laying legal groundwork, creating the illusion that she's been financially involved from the beginning." I blinked. "But she hasn't. She didn't give us a dime." "Then you have nothing to hide," Trisha said. "But she does, and we're going to expose it." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Having Trisha on my side was like flipping on a light in a room I thought I was trapped in. There was a way forward. I just had to stop ignoring the signs and start documenting them. "Okay," I said. "What's step 1? "Ano did Anne the speeded." She smiled. "Step 1? You write down everything you just told me, in detail. Timeline, names, what she said, what Kyle said. Think of it like a journal, but this one could save your life." I pulled out my phone and started typing in the Notes app. Fingers flying. Trisha leaned forward. "And Hannah?" "Yeah? If these documents are fake, we can take her to court. But first," she tapped the USB twice. "We need proof. And you've already got a head start." I walked out of that diner with a new folder on my phone and fire in my chest. And that night, I caught Vanessa saying something on video she definitely shouldn't have. It's amazing how fast a lie can spread when it comes from someone who speaks with confidence. And Vanessa? She's been rehearsing that tone since childhood. By the time I found out what she was telling people, it wasn't just a whisper, it was a full-on narrative. one where she was the generous sister, and I was the helpless little sibling who couldn't keep her life together without a handout. The first time I realized how far she'd taken it was at the grocery store. I was in line at Harris Teeter, picking up snacks for school and some prenatal vitamins, when I ran into Cheryl, a friend of Vanessa's from her gym. She smiled, eyes dropping to my baby bump. "So exciting about the new place." "Thanks," I said politely. She leaned in like she was about to share a secret. "Vanessa told me she helped with the down payment. So generous. I mean, not everyone would do that for family." My hand froze halfway to the debit machine. She said, "What?" Cheryl blinked. "That she fronted you some money. Just until you got back on your feet." I forced a laugh, too tight. "No. That's not true." Her smile wavered. "Oh, sorry, I must have misunderstood." But the damage was done. I could already feel it, the shift in how people looked at me. Like I wasn't capable. Like I was being kept. Later that night, I called Trisha from my car in the parking lot. "I just ran into someone who thinks Vanessa paid for my condo," I said, my voice shaking. "She's actually telling people that." There was silence on the other end for a moment. "Okay," Trisha said slowly. "Let's rewind. Think back to the day of closing. Did Vanessa contribute anything? Did she even offer to?" I closed my eyes, trying to remember. It had been a warm day in April. I wore a loose blue dress because I was already starting to show. Kyle and I had arrived at the mortgage office with a folder full of paperwork, excited and nervous. Vanessa showed up uninvited. "I just wanted to be here for moral support," she said, breezing in with a latte and a clipboard. Yes, a clipboard. Like she was some kind of housing consultant. She sat in the back of the conference room during the entire appointment, offering unsolicited advice about escrow accounts and interest rates. When the broker walked out to make copies, Vanessa leaned over and whispered, "Are you sure you're ready for this, Han? You've always been impulsive." I remember gripping Kyle's hand under the table, trying not to cry, but he didn't squeeze back. That was the day I wrote the check. My check. Money I'd been saving for 5 years, scraped together through second jobs and weekend tutoring. Vanessa never offered a penny, never even opened her purse, but now? She was rewriting that moment in her favor. The next day, I bumped into one of Kyle's coworkers in the building lobby. We exchanged small talk before he said, "You're lucky to have a sister like Vanessa. Not everyone would stake a loan like that." I didn't respond. I just smiled and walked straight into the elevator before I lost it. Inside, I felt the walls closing in. I wasn't just being pushed out of my home. I was being recast in a story where I was the weak, needy little sister saved by the wise, selfless Vanessa. It was humiliating. That night, Trisha and I sat side by side at her kitchen island, laptops open, drinks untouched. "She's doing this on purpose," I said, scrolling through screenshots of social media comments. "She's laying groundwork, making people believe she's had a stake in this from the beginning." Trisha nodded, typing furiously. "She's building her case outside of court in the court of public opinion." I leaned my elbows on the counter. "Is there even a way to prove she didn't contribute anything?" "Your closing docs will help. The payment receipts, bank statements. But more importantly," she stopped typing and looked at me. "I just found something." "What?" Anton Very have said. She submitted an inquiry to a real estate brokerage 2 weeks ago. From her own email, she asked about initiating a title transfer on your condo. I froze. "A what?" Trisha turned her laptop so I could read the message. My heart dropped. It was short, professional, cold. "I'm one of the financial contributors to a condo currently in my sister's name. I'd like to begin the process of moving into a co-ownership arrangement. Please advise on title transfer steps. I'm happy to provide proof of investment." She even attached a fake spreadsheet, Trisha said. "Claims she wired money to your account last spring." "She didn't," I whispered. "I know," Trisha said. "But unless we expose this now, it's her word against yours." I stared at the screen, my blood going cold. Vanessa wasn't just talking. She wasn't just moving furniture or handing out paint swatches. She was building a paper trail of lies, one forged doc at a time. As I stared at that email, something clicked. Vanessa wasn't trying to help. She was preparing to take everything and leave me with nothing. It's a strange thing when the person lying next to you in bed stops feeling familiar. You learn to memorize the way they breathe, the little groans they make when they shift, the rhythm of their heartbeat when your head rests against their chest. You trust it, without thinking. Like background music you've heard so often, you forget it's even there. But that night, lying next to Kyle, The sound of his breathing made my skin crawl. I waited until he was half asleep, that soft, quiet place between dreaming and denial, before I spoke. Why did you email Vanessa about the condo? He tensed immediately. Then, like he'd rehearsed it, he rolled over and mumbled, What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about, I said, keeping my voice even. The property transfer email. You said I didn't need to know, that she should send you a revised version. There was a long silence. Then he exhaled and rubbed his face. Hannah, you're tired. You're pregnant. This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you yet. My jaw tightened. Didn't want to tell me what, exactly? That you and my sister are trying to take my home out from under me? He finally turned to face me. His expression wasn't angry. It was worse. It was pity. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said softly, like I was a child. I saw the fake documents, Kyle. I saw the emails. I saw the spreadsheet she made claiming she paid into our account. He shrugged. Shrugged. Like it was no big deal. Like it was some silly misunderstanding. She's just trying to protect the asset, he said. The asset? I repeated, stunned. It's our home. Technically. It's yours, he muttered. And whose fault is that? I snapped. You're the one who asked me to put it in my name because your credit was shot. He flinched, finally. But he didn't apologize. Instead, he said, Vanessa's just trying to make sure the place is secure in case anything happens. You've been emotional lately, she thought. Oh, don't do that. My voice cracked. Do not turn this into a hormone thing. He sighed again, rolled back over, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. Let's talk about this tomorrow. But we wouldn't. Because I already knew what he was doing. He wasn't protecting me. He was stalling me. I stared at the ceiling for hours. Too wired to cry. Too tired to move. I could feel our baby pressing against my ribs, turning gently like she was trying to find her own space to rest. I whispered, We're gonna be okay, baby girl. Mama's gonna fix this. At 2:07 a.m. I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the kitchen, grabbing Kyle's phone from the charger as I passed. I shouldn't have done it, but I had to do it. His password hadn't changed. Same birthday combo he'd used for years. I opened his messages and typed in one name, Vanessa. The thread popped up instantly. Hundreds of messages. Dates going back months. Some were mundane. She's still asking about the contractor. Just stall. I told her you'd take care of the paperwork. Some made my heart slam against my chest. Once we push her out, it's ours. We need to act before she figures it out. She won't fight. She never does. And one. Dated 2 nights ago. Let's give it a few more weeks. Then we'll tell her. Tell me what? That I was being evicted from my own life? I took screenshots of everything. Every text, every date, every timestamp. I backed it all up to the USB drive I'd started keeping in my purse. Then I slid his phone back where I found it, careful not to make a sound. When I climbed back into bed, Kyle didn't move, but I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes, because the man lying next to me wasn't my husband anymore. He was a stranger with my secrets in his pocket, and a plan to erase me from my own home. The next morning, I went through the motions. Made coffee, changed into leggings, kissed Kyle on the cheek like nothing had changed. He left for work, distracted as usual. I waited exactly 4 minutes, then opened the front door to get some fresh air. There was an envelope on the welcome mat, my name on the front, no return address. Inside, a letter. Typed. Formal. Cold. Notice of intent to revoke occupancy. My hands started shaking. It was worded like a business transaction, like I was a squatter, not a homeowner. They'd copied the condo's address, cited a pending ownership dispute, and claimed that, until resolved, I had no right to remain on the property. And at the bottom, signed, Vanessa Blake. No Kyle, no lawyer, just her name. She was putting it in writing now, making it official. I held the letter in my hands and knew this wasn't just sabotage. It was eviction not just from my condo but from my own life, and I wasn't going to let it happen. The night should have been a celebration. Our condo was finally decorated, string lights on the balcony, framed sonogram on the hallway shelf, lemon bars cooling on the counter. I wore a soft blue dress that made me feel almost pretty again, even swollen and tired and 34 weeks pregnant. Friends from work came, Kyle's coworkers, cousins from both sides. People clinked glasses and said things like, "Beautiful place, Hannah, and you two must be so excited." I smiled. I nodded. I played the part. But inside, I was counting the minutes, because I knew what was coming, and I needed witnesses. It wasn't even an hour into the party when I noticed Vanessa hovering near the karaoke machine, sipping a glass of white wine and looking far too pleased with herself. She wore one of those perfect, structured blouses she always did at family functions, like she was already running the meeting. Her eyes kept scanning the room like she was inventorying everything. The furniture, the people, the mood. Kyle stood near the kitchen island, drink in hand, avoiding my gaze. He looked calm. Too calm. Like he'd already checked out. My best friend Trisha, bless her, never left my side. Every time Vanessa made a move, Trisha's hand would tighten around my wrist, like a warning. Then the music cut off, the chatter dimmed. Vanessa cleared her throat and stepped up to the mic. "Can I say something real quick?" she said, flashing a toothy smile. "Just a little toast. Just..." Everyone turned to look. Someone clapped. Someone else shouted, "Speech!" I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. Trisha whispered, "Get ready." Vanessa lifted her glass. "I just want to thank everyone for coming to this lovely party tonight. It's not every day you get to celebrate a brand new chapter. Or should I say, a new beginning." She paused, looked directly at me, and as of this week, I'm thrilled to officially announce I'm now the legal co-owner of this condo. Annie was not to the pring to our five tapid. The room went silent. I know, she said, laughing like this was some kind of joke. Big surprise, right? But it's true. I've spoken with my attorney, the paperwork's in motion, and everything is completely above board. Family investments, shared assets, it's all part of our future. She turned toward the crowd again. And as part of that transition, I'm afraid some changes will be necessary. Starting with the current resident. She looked back at me. "Hannah, you're no longer welcome here." Gasps, actual gasps. I felt the blood drain from my face. I could see Kyle in the corner of my vision, not saying a word, not stepping forward, not shaking his head or denying it. Just sipping his drink like this was background noise. Trisha stiffened beside me. "She didn't," she whispered, "but she had. She'd said it out loud. In front of everyone. Declared war in the middle of my own living room. My hands were trembling. My mouth was dry. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was stare." Vanessa continued, like she was giving a TED talk. "I know this may come as a shock to some of you, but Hannah's been under a lot of stress lately. With the pregnancy and all, well, let's just say things haven't been easy. So I'm stepping in to make sure everything stays on track for the baby's sake, of course." The fink he salven ender wild into a breathing. She smiled sweetly, like this was some kind of favor. I looked around. People were whispering. Awkward glances. Furtive looks at me. At Kyle. Back at Vanessa. I could feel my dignity shrinking in real time. Until finally, I reached into my purse and pulled out the USB drive. It was small. Black. Unmarked. But it might as well have been a grenade. Trisha looked at it, then at me. Her eyes burned with pride. Vanessa stopped mid-sentence. "What's that?" I held it up. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is every email, text message, forged document, and shady conversation you and Kyle thought I'd never see." A ripple of murmurs moved through the room. Vanessa blinked. "Hannah, this isn't the time." "No." I cut her off. "You made this the time. You just publicly tried to evict me from a home I paid for. So now we're going to talk about what really happened." Her smile faltered. I turned to the room. "You all heard what she just said. But what you didn't hear is that she's been sneaking into my condo, rearranging my nursery, forging financial records, and lying about paying for a down payment she never touched." Kyle shifted uncomfortably but still said nothing. "And this man?" I gestured toward him. "He's been helping her, planning behind my back, sending her documents, texting her about getting me out." I air quoted it. Vanessa's jaw tightened. "You're unstable, Hannah." "Am I?" I held up the USB again. "Because I've got receipts." Literally. Silence. A weight fell over the room. People started backing away. Some looked down at their drinks. Others grabbed their coats. No one was clapping anymore. I locked eyes with Kyle. He didn't move. Just stared at the wall behind me, like he wished he could disappear. Trisha took a step forward, linking her arm with mine. "You good?" she whispered. I nodded once. "I'm done being quiet." As the crowd thinned and Vanessa's smile finally cracked, I tightened my grip on that USB. She made this public. Now she was going to regret it in court. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things or make a scene. I just packed. In silence, because when someone burns your life down right in front of you, you don't waste time yelling at the flames. You get out. You survive. You rebuild later. After the party imploded, people trickled out awkwardly. No one met my eye. Not even Kyle. He stood there like a background actor in his own marriage, one hand in his pocket, the other loosely holding a wine glass. Not a word of defense. Not a hint of shame. Vanessa hovered by the kitchen, pretending to tidy up, though we both knew she was listening, watching, waiting to see what I'd do, but I gave her nothing. I walked to the bedroom, pulled out my weekender bag from under the bed, and began folding clothes. My clothes. Not hers, not ours. Mine. Every movement felt surreal, like I was floating just above my own body. This wasn't the plan. I was supposed to bring my daughter home to this condo. I was supposed to paint her nursery, rock her by the window, teach her the names of stars from the balcony. But now, I was leaving behind a place I'd built brick by brick, dollar by dollar, with a man who couldn't even look me in the eye. Trisha pulled up 20 minutes later. She didn't knock. She walked straight in, nodded once at Kyle, and helped me zip up my suitcase. The way he just stood there and watched made something crack inside me. Not once did he say, "Please don't go." Not once did he ask, "Can we talk?" Not once did he say, "I'm sorry." And that silence hurt more than any of Vanessa's lies ever could. The ride to Trisha's apartment was quiet. Charlotte passed by in a blur of streetlights and late-night traffic. I stared out the window, one hand on my stomach, feeling the baby move gently beneath my palm. She deserved better than this chaos, better than this betrayal. Trisha finally broke the silence. "You okay?" I shook my head. "No, but I will be. I'm ashamed in this dest and was noli now." Her apartment smelled like lavender and fresh laundry. She showed me to the guest room, small but warm, with a soft bed already made and a robe folded neatly on the dresser. I sat on the edge of the bed, let out a long breath, and whispered, "Thank you." Trisha knelt beside me and held my hand. "You did the right thing," she said. "You didn't run away. You walked out with your head up. That matters." I nodded, too tired to speak. Then she added, "But you're not done yet." The next morning, everything changed. It started with my phone buzzing nonstop. Messages, tags, mentions. Vanessa had gone public. She'd posted a photo of my empty closet with the caption, "Some people walk away from everything they claim to love, including their own family." Then another. A blurry picture of Kyle at the party, smiling. "Thankfully, I'm here to help pick up the pieces." The comments were brutal. People I hadn't spoken to in years chimed in. "So sorry you're dealing with this, Vanessa." She always seemed a little unstable. "Kyle deserves peace." I stared at the screen, shaking. She wasn't just smearing me, she was replacing me, painting herself as the savior, the woman who stepped up when I walked away. I threw the phone onto the bed and paced the room, my fists clenched. "I want to respond," I said through gritted teeth. "I want to post screenshots, receipts, all of it." Trisha appeared in the doorway, holding a mug of tea. "Don't," she said gently. "That's what she wants. She wants to draw you into a public fight, something she can twist." "But people believe her," I said. "They're siding with her." "Not for long." I stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" Trisha set the tea down on the nightstand and crossed her arms. "I booked you a legal consultation. Tomorrow. With someone I trust." I blinked. "What?" "She's a bulldog," Trisha said. "Real estate fraud, forged documents, identity manipulation. This is her world. You show her what you've got, and we take it from there." I sat down slowly, stunned. "You really think I have a case?" Trisha didn't hesitate. "Hannah, you have evidence. You've got the email thread, the forged signature, the text messages, the screenshots, the attempted eviction, and now this social media campaign? That's defamation on top of everything else." My hands were shaking again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. It was readiness. That night, I lay in Trisha's guest bed, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't in my condo. I wasn't with my husband. I wasn't where I thought I'd be. But for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. And more than that, I felt dangerous. Tomorrow, I'd meet the lawyer who could take my truth and turn it into justice. And Vanessa? She had no idea what was coming. It was raining when I stepped into Carla Jennings' office. Not a soft, romantic drizzle, this was the kind of Carolina rain that hit your skin like a warning. Heavy, loud, cleansing. I stood in the lobby, soaked to the knees, one hand cradling my belly, the other gripping the folder Trisha helped me put together the night before. Inside, the emails, the screenshots, the forged bank doc, my life shredded and photocopied. The receptionist gave me a polite, almost pitying smile and waved me toward the glass door. "She's ready for you." Carla Jennings didn't look like a lawyer from TV. She wasn't wearing some slick pencil skirt or stilettos. No dramatic bun or cold stare. She wore flats, a navy cardigan, reading glasses on the tip of her nose. But her eyes were sharp, like she'd already seen the worst in people and filed it under expected behavior. She gestured to the chair across from her desk and said, "So, you're Hannah." I nodded, sitting carefully. "Yes. My friend Trisha told you about me? She said you're in trouble. And that you have proof." Carla folded her hands. "Start from the beginning." I did. I told her about the condo, the pregnancy, Vanessa's helpful behavior that slowly turned invasive. I told her about Kyle's silence, his emails, the smirking betrayal at the party, the eviction notice with my address on it. Carla didn't interrupt, didn't nod sympathetically. She just listened like every word mattered. Then I slid the folder across her desk. She opened it and began flipping through, page by page. Her expression never changed, but I noticed her pen had stopped moving. Halfway through, she held up the forged co-investor document. "This isn't your signature." "No, it's not." "And this email? Kyle sent this to Vanessa, discussing transferring the deed without notifying you." "Yes. I only found it because he left his laptop open." Carla glanced up. "Finally. And the text message where Vanessa says, 'Once we push her out, it's ours?' That's from his phone too?" "Screenshot," I said. "I saved everything." Carla leaned back slowly, eyebrows raised. "Well," I waited, my hands clenched in my lap. "Is it enough?" I asked. "To fight this? To get my home back?" Carla looked at me, flatly. "It's more than enough." A breath I didn't realize I was holding escaped me. She flipped through the rest of the folder, then sat forward. "Here's what we're going to do." She laid it out like a general planning battle strategy. First, she'd file an injunction to freeze any title transfers. Second, she'd begin proceedings to challenge the co-ownership claims, starting with Vanessa's forged financials. Third, we'd pursue identity theft and real estate fraud. Both are criminal offenses, especially with proof. "And Kyle?" I asked. "He gave her access. He sent her documents without my consent." Carla's eyes narrowed. "We'll be adding breach of marital fiduciary duty, plus potential civil penalties for violating your financial privacy." I blinked. "That's a lot." Carla shrugged. "They started this war. I just finished them legally." I sat there for a minute, trying to take it in. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a counterattack. "I have more," I said suddenly. "A recording. Of Vanessa. I called her a few days ago. She basically admitted it was all a plan. That I wasn't supposed to keep the condo." Carla's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. "Email that to me today. That'll be the nail in the coffin." I nodded, pulling out my phone. "And one more thing," she said, sliding the folder back toward me. "We'll need to keep documenting everything. Any online harassment, social media slander. Every screenshot adds weight." I took the folder and stood up, feeling different. Like I wasn't just the victim in this anymore. Like I was finally holding a weapon. Carla stood too, smoothing her cardigan. She walked me to the door and paused with her hand on the knob. "Hannah?" I turned. She looked at me seriously, her voice low. "Are you ready to fight for everything they tried to steal?" I looked back at her, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broken. I felt focused. "I'm more than ready," I said. Because they hadn't just tried to take my home, they'd tried to erase me. Next, I had to make a choice. Keep playing quiet, or start recording everything. I used to be the kind of person who believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, but after what Vanessa and Kyle did to me after that party, after the lies I learned the hard way, some people only understand consequences, so I stopped waiting for truth to surface on its own. I started documenting everything, and I mean everything. My phone became my lifeline. At work, in the car, in coffee shops, wherever I thought Vanessa or Kyle might show up, I was ready. Voice memos, video clips, screenshots. I even started carrying a second phone Trisha lent me, just in case one failed. It felt sneaky, paranoid even, but it also felt smart, strategic, and honestly, Long overdue. The first time I got something useful was completely by accident. I was sitting in that little cafe 2 blocks from my school, the one with the exposed brick and terrible Wi-Fi. It was a quiet afternoon. I was sipping peppermint tea, scrolling through housing blogs, trying to calm my nerves. When the door chimed, I didn't even have to turn around. I knew that voice. Hannah, there you are. Vanessa. She slid into the seat across from me like she was the one who invited me, wearing a crisp blazer, her hair pulled tight like she was headed to a networking event. Not a hint of guilt on her face. I tapped my phone screen under the table and hit record. Didn't know we had plans, I said flatly. She shrugged. I was in the area. Thought I'd check in. That word. Check in. Like I was her employee. Vanessa picked up my tea without asking and sipped it, grimacing. You should switch to chamomile. Peppermint spikes your cortisol. I just stared. Anyway, she continued, flipping open her sleek leather planner. I was thinking, for the condo, once everything settles down, we should repaint the guest room. Maybe open it up. Create an office/closet. I blinked. I'm sorry, She didn't even flinch. Well, let's not pretend you can maintain it alone. I'm just planning ahead, that's all. I smiled. Not because I was happy, because the mic was on and Vanessa was giving me exactly what I needed. She went on for 10 more minutes, talking about renovations, mortgage rates, how she was in talks with a designer friend to modernize the kitchen. Every word was gold. Eventually, she stood up and brushed invisible lint off her lap. Don't worry, Hannah. Once the paperwork clears, this'll all feel like a dream. Then she left. I sat there for another 5 minutes, staring at the table. My tea was cold. My hands weren't, they were hot. Shaking, because no matter how calm I looked, my blood was boiling. But this time, I didn't cry. I uploaded the recording to the shared drive Trisha and I created. Labeled it, Vanessa Cafe Condo Talk, MP3. Let her try to lie in court. I had receipts. Later that night, I was going through old emails when my phone buzzed. A message from Paula, my coworker. We weren't close, but she'd been kind since everything started falling apart. The message was short. You need to see this. It's about Kyle. My heart slammed against my ribs. I messaged back. What is it? 3 dots. Then, can you meet me tomorrow before work? I found something. I stared at the screen, not because I was surprised at this point. Nothing shocked me, but because deep down, I knew whatever she had. It was bad. And maybe it would break me all over again. Or maybe it would be the final piece I needed to end this war. Next morning, Paula sat across from me with her phone out, and what she showed me changed everything. I should have been used to betrayal by now, but seeing it in living color still knocked the wind out of me. Paula and I met at a downtown coffee shop, the kind with mismatched chairs and indie music playing softly in the background. It was quiet, the perfect place to talk without anyone listening. She slid into the seat across from me, her expression tight. I'm sorry, Hannah. I shouldn't have to be the one showing you this. Then she opened her phone. I assumed it was a text or maybe a screenshot. But no. The first thing I saw made my stomach drop like a stone. A photo. Kyle and Vanessa. Holding hands. In public. Downtown. Just a week ago. He had his arms slung around her shoulder. She was smiling, mocking. I thought like she owned him. Like she owned everything I'd ever built. The cafe suddenly felt suffocating. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I could barely move. Paula put her hand over mine. I saw it when I was leaving my office. I had to tell you. I nodded, even though tears threatened to fall. We moved across the street to a small diner, just to talk, away from the cozy familiarity of the coffee shop. I needed room to process, to make sense of the picture. Paula had more. She slid her phone across the table, showing me text screenshots from Kyle's phone. Once we push her out, it's ours. Keep her distracted. We'll handle the rest. She won't suspect a thing. Just trust me. The words burned. My blood boiled. They weren't just sneaking behind my back. They were planning it. Carefully. Coldly. Strategically. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. All along, I whispered, my voice breaking. They were all along. Together. House in a distillard and Respirias. Paula reached over and squeezed my arm. I know. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve this. I shook my head. No one deserves this. Not like this. I thought about every small thing that had made me uneasy in the past months. Vanessa, helping with the mortgage documents. Kyle dismissing my concerns. The rearranged furniture. The eviction notice. Every piece clicked together now. This wasn't just greed. This wasn't just opportunistic meddling. This was collusion. And it wasn't just financial. It was personal. Deeply personal. They'd been living a double life in front of me for months. And I hadn't seen a thing. I tried to collect myself, but my hands were trembling. My chest felt tight. Paula watched me quietly. Finally, I said, "We can't wait. I have to record something. I need proof." Direct from her mouth. She nodded. "You have to. And don't hesitate." I pulled out my phone from my bag and opened the recording app. My hands shook so badly I thought I might drop it. I dialed Vanessa's number. The phone rang. And rang. Then she answered, her voice like syrup. "Hannah? Everything okay?" I pressed record. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. My voice low but shaking. Vanessa laughed. That smug, rehearsed laugh. "You mean, why am I protecting the condo? Why am I saving you from overextending yourself?" "Oh, Hannah. You really don't get it, do you?" Her tone was casual. Almost playful. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I kept recording. "Stop lying," I whispered. "Tell me the truth. Kyle. You. The condo. The plan." Another pause. Then, "It's just business, Hannah. You're emotional. And you've been overreacting. The condo? Don't worry. We'll handle it." I could hear her smile over the line. That victory grin. "I'm done with handling it, Vanessa," I said. "I know everything. And I'm keeping this recording. All of it. Every word." She didn't respond. Just laughed softly again and hung up. I sat back in my chair, gripping my phone tightly, the recording running silently. Paula reached across and held my hand. "You got it. You got her admitting it." I nodded, though I couldn't speak. My mind was racing too fast. Every betrayal, every lie, every fake smile from Kyle, all captured in her own words. This was more than evidence. This was empowerment, and for the first time in months, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. I finally exhaled, long and slow, feeling the weight on my shoulders shift slightly. They thought they had me boxed in. They thought I'd crumble quietly in the corner of my own home. They were wrong. My hand trembled as I pressed record and dialed Vanessa. And in that moment, I realized, this wasn't just confrontation. This was the beginning of the fight I'd been waiting for. I never expected to hear it in her own words. But that's exactly what happened. I sat cross-legged on the floor of Trisha's apartment, the USB drive and my phone on the coffee table in front of me. My heart was still pounding from the previous day's discoveries, from Paula's photo and text screenshots, from the realization that Kyle and Vanessa had been plotting against me all along. But today was different. Today, I decided I wasn't waiting for evidence to fall into my lap. I was going to make them speak. I dialed Vanessa's number, my fingers trembling slightly despite the fire coursing through me. "Hello?" Her voice was light, cheerful, like everything was fine. "Hi, Vanessa," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I just wanted to talk about the condo." There was a pause, then a soft laugh. "Hannah, how sweet. You really think you can discuss this rationally? I just want to clarify a few things." I started the recording app on my phone, pressing record as discreetly as possible. "You want to clarify," she repeated, amusement dripping from her voice. "Go ahead. I'm listening." "How?" I leaned back against Trisha's couch, pretending to be casual, letting Vanessa think she still had the upper hand. I asked, carefully. "Vanessa, did you ever intend for the condo to be mine?" Her laugh was the answer I feared. "No," she said. I froze. "No?" I repeated, my voice catching. "That apartment," she said, speaking slowly as if explaining to a child, "was never meant to be yours. Not really. It was always in our plans, Kyle's and mine. You were just along for the ride." I couldn't help it. My hand tightened on the phone, my knuckles white. Every word she spoke was a dagger wrapped in silk. But I didn't flinch. I let it burn. "You actually admit that?" I asked. "That it was never mine?" "Yes," she said casually. "You never had a real chance. I mean, come on, Hannah. You're sweet but naive. You think the world works the way it should. It doesn't." I let the silence hang for a moment. Let it sink in. "You're insane," I whispered. "Maybe," she said, laughing softly again. "But I'm effective. That's what matters." I stayed calm, letting her words pour in while the recording captured every syllable. "This is going to be fun," she continued, oblivious. You'll see how easy this was. And Kyle? He's just as smart as I am. We're solid. You never even noticed. Honestly, I almost feel bad. Added as a fell how to salve. Her mock sympathy only fueled my fire. I've got everything, I said quietly, barely audible. Every word, every lie, every plan. It's all recorded. There was a pause on the line. Then, you think that matters? I do, I said firmly. Because now, no one can deny the truth. She hung up before I could reply, her laugh echoing in my ear like the final note of a cruel symphony. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly, my chest aching from the adrenaline. Trisha, sitting across from me on the couch, was wide-eyed. You did it, she said softly. I nodded. She admitted it. Every plan, every lie. In her own words, I can't believe she actually said it, Trisha whispered. I paused, letting the moment settle. Satisfaction. That slow, simmering feeling that comes when the pieces finally start falling into place. I felt fire rising in my chest. A determination that had nothing to do with revenge for revenge's sake. It was about justice. It was about protecting my future. Protecting my baby. Protecting myself. And I wasn't done. Later that day, I walked into Carla Jennings' office. The rain had let up, leaving the streets wet and shiny under Charlotte's late afternoon sundae. I clutched my phone in one hand, the recording app still active, and the USB drive in the other. Carla looked up, eyebrows raised. You look different. Focused. I am, I said. I've got something you need to hear. I handed her the phone, letting her listen as Vanessa's words played out. Every smug, overconfident admission, every casual lie, every calculated plan. Carla's expression hardened as the recording progressed. By the time Vanessa declared the condo was never meant to be mine, Carla's jaw was tight. When it ended, she sat back in her chair, her fingers steepled. Well, she said finally, voice low and steady. That's exactly what we needed. I looked at her, breath catching. Now what? I asked, my voice quiet but urgent. Carla leaned forward. Now, we take this to court. This recording is gold. It's a verbal confession, in her own voice, admitting intent, conspiracy, and fraud. It's airtight. And you, Hannah, you're finally in control. I felt my chest rise and fall. A mixture of relief and raw energy flooding through me. The woman who tried to erase me, manipulate my home, and betray my trust had just handed me the ultimate weapon, her own arrogance. I couldn't believe it. Not really. Not yet. I handed the recording to Carla, my hands still shaking, and asked, now what? Her eyes locked on mine, sharp, unwavering. Now. We fight for everything they tried to steal. I thought I was prepared. I thought recording Vanessa, saving screenshots, and confiding in Trisha would be enough. But nothing could have prepared me for the public storm she unleashed. It started with a single post. Vanessa posted on Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn, a carefully crafted message. Some people walk away from family responsibilities. Some abandon the ones who've supported them the most. I hope everyone understands why I had to step in for Hannah. Photos of our condo, all taken from angles that made it look hers. Furniture perfectly arranged, a smug smile in the corner of every frame. The captions made it sound like I was the problem, that I had been irresponsible, unfit, ungrateful. Within hours, the comments poured in. Wow. Hannah really doesn't care about family. She abandoned Kyle? Really? She seems unstable. Pregnancy or not, that's cold. Even some of Kyle's coworkers chimed in, believing her story. I sat at my laptop in Trisha's apartment, staring at the screen, heart sinking. It felt like betrayal squared. First Vanessa, then the world. I wanted to fire off a post, screenshots, evidence, proof, every lie exposed, but I hesitated. Trisha hovered behind me, hand on my shoulder. Don't. I spun around. Don't? Are you kidding? She's lying about everything. I have proof. I have recordings, emails, screenshots. We can post them now and everyone will see the truth. Trisha shook her head firmly. Vanessa wants you to do that. She wants to make this public. She wants the fight to be emotional. She's counting on your anger. Don't give it to her. I scowled. So what, I just let her smear me? Carla, who had been reviewing documents in the corner, looked up. Yes. For now. Hold the line. Court is coming. Once we're in there, all this social media nonsense will work in our favor. Proof of harassment, defamation, and manipulation. You respond emotionally online. You ruin your case before it even starts. I sat back, chewing my lip. It felt wrong. It felt humiliating. I had been publicly humiliated, and now I had to restrain myself. The next few days were brutal. I walked into the teacher's lounge at work and felt eyes on me. Whispers. Stifled laughter. One coworker leaned over to another. I saw Vanessa's post. Hannah really abandoned Kyle? I forced a smile. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Another coworker asked me directly, is it true? I swallowed hard. No, absolutely not. But the doubt in their eyes, that stung worse than Vanessa ever could. I stayed disciplined. Every time I felt the urge to post, to defend myself, to scream the truth into the void of social media, I reminded myself of Trisha and Carla's words. Hold the line. Court is coming. It became a mantra. Hold the line. Then, just when I thought the storm couldn't get worse, Paula came through. She slid a printed email across the desk to me at the library during lunch break. I froze. It was from Vanessa, to a local real estate agent. The subject line read, Co-ownership claim, Lawson condo. I unfolded it carefully. In the email, Vanessa claimed she was a co-investor in our condo. She attached a PDF of a payment history, complete with numbers and dates, and my forged signature at the bottom. I felt my stomach twist. This is audacious, I whispered. Paula nodded. She's not just smearing you online. She's building a legal paper trail. And now she's using forged documents to make it look legitimate. I clutched the paper like it was a lifeline. Trisha took one look and said softly, See? This is why we're not posting anything. We handle this in court. All of it. Every lie. Every forged document. That's how we win. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to remind myself that control wasn't emotional, it was strategic. Vanessa was loud in public, but she was reckless. Every post, every comment, every forged document she leaked online gave us leverage. Every lie she broadcast was a building block for the case we were constructing. I focused on that. Focused on strategy. Focused on evidence. By the time I left the library that evening, the storm had grown. Vanessa's posts were shared hundreds of times. Trolls were piling on. Friends who had been supportive were confused, asking questions I couldn't answer without risking our court case. But I felt calm. I was no longer the naive sister who let Vanessa dictate her life. I was the one building the arsenal. I was the one holding the proof. And soon, very soon, the world would see the truth. Just when I thought I could finally focus, Paula slid another paper across my desk, her eyes wide. It was another bombshell. Vanessa's email to the realtor, with my forged signature, and I knew. Then, this fight had just escalated. The first thing I noticed when I walked into Carla Jennings' office was the calm. Not the kind of calm that comes before a storm, but the decisive, controlled calm of someone who's faced chaos and dismantled it systematically. Carla was already sitting behind her desk, reading over a stack of papers I recognized immediately. Emails, screenshots, recordings, all the evidence I had collected over the past weeks. She looked up as I entered. Good. You're here, she said, voice firm. We have work to do. I sat across from her, my stomach fluttering with nerves and adrenaline. This, Carla said, tapping the folder in front of her, is everything we need. I nodded, trying not to tremble. You really think it's enough? Carla leaned back, steepling her fingers. It's more than enough. You've got emails showing intent, recordings of verbal admissions, forged financial documents, and even public harassment online. This isn't just a civil issue, it's criminal. Criminal? I repeated. Yes, Carla said, flipping to one of the forged co-investor forms. Forgery is a felony. Identity theft, fraud, misrepresentation in real estate transactions, each of these is actionable on its own. Together, they're a slam dunk. Vanessa's overconfidence just became her undoing. I exhaled, a weightlifting I hadn't realized I was carrying. For months, I'd felt powerless. I'd watched Vanessa manipulate, Kyle collude, and strangers believe their version of events. But now, I had leverage. Carla began walking me through the legal strategy. First, she explained, we would file pre-court motions to freeze any potential changes to the condo's deed. That meant Vanessa couldn't make any legal claims while the case was pending. Second, we'd consolidate the evidence for the fraud, identity theft, and forgery charges. The recording where Vanessa admitted the condo was never meant to be mine? That would be a cornerstone in court. Third, Carla emphasized the importance of restraint. Do not engage publicly. Social media is a battlefield you do not want to fight online. Vanessa wants you to react. Every post, every comment could be used against you. Heaven said it is not 20. I nodded. I'd been practicing that discipline for days. She flipped through the folder and stopped on the social media screenshots. These posts? They're gold. She's trying to smear you publicly. That shows motive. It shows intent. And when we show the forged documents, emails, and recordings together, it'll be impossible for the judge or a jury to ignore what she was planning. I felt a surge of energy, confidence, momentum. For the first time since the housewarming disaster, I felt in control. This is airtight, Carla continued. You've covered every angle. Verbal admissions, financial records, email correspondence, social media activity, and witness testimony if we need it. It's all here. I smiled. A little weak but genuine. I can't believe it. After everything, it's finally solid. It is, Carla said, nodding. And now we file the motions. Vanessa won't see this coming. But before we proceed, we need one more thing from you. I froze slightly. What's that? Your confrontation with Kyle, she said. We need him on record, his words, his reactions, anything that proves collusion. I swallowed hard. I hadn't confronted him since the party. The thought of seeing him, hearing his voice, made my chest ache, but I knew it was necessary. Carla's eyes softened just a little. I know it's difficult, but this is the moment that ties everything together. You're ready for it. You've done the work. Now it's time for them to see the consequences of their actions. I nodded, steeling myself. I'll do it, I said. Carla smiled faintly. Good. And remember, document everything. Video, audio, screenshots. Nothing verbal or written is too small. Every detail matters. After filing the pre-court motions, I walked out of her office feeling a strange mix of relief and anticipation. The rain outside had stopped. The streets glistened, reflecting the city lights. Every step I took felt purposeful, deliberate, like I was walking toward something I had finally earned. Justice. That evening, I met Paula at a neutral park, a small, quiet, green space far from the condo and the chaos Vanessa had created. She was waiting with her laptop, but this time, I had a mission. Kyle. I needed his words, his admissions, his complicity. I set my phone to record before he arrived. Every scenario ran through my head. Would he deny everything? Would he beg forgiveness? Or would he confess quietly, hoping I'd go easy? I didn't care. I needed it all. Paula watched me closely as I adjusted the phone. You're ready for this, she said. I have to be, I replied. My hands trembled slightly, but my resolve didn't falter. Everything depends on this. She nodded. Just stay calm. Don't let emotion take control. Let him speak. Let him hang himself with his own words. I inhaled deeply and looked out over the park. The bench where Kyle would sit soon seemed tiny and fragile under the weight of everything I had endured. And yet, I felt strong, strategic, prepared. The recording device was on. The folder of evidence sat in my bag beside me. Every email, screenshot, and forged document lined up in my mind. The pieces were falling into place. Vanessa and Kyle had thought they could control me. They had thought I'd crumble quietly in the corner of my own life. But tonight, I was about to prove them wrong. As I saw Kyle walking toward the bench, unaware that my phone was recording, my heart raced. The confrontation I'd been dreading and waiting for was finally here. And this time, he wouldn't get to hide. I spotted him before he even reached the bench. Kyle's shoulders were slumped, hands stuffed in his pockets. His usual confident posture had been replaced by something hesitant, timid almost. He didn't glance up as he walked toward me. I stayed seated, my phone set to record, positioned carefully on the bench. The small red dot blinked, letting me know every word, every movement, would be captured. This was it. I took a slow, deep breath. My heart pounded. Every step he took toward me felt heavier than the last. Finally, he stopped a few feet away, hands now empty, face pale in the late afternoon light. Hannah, he began, voice low, almost apologetic. I didn't think I cut him off, my voice steady but sharp. Why? He flinched slightly. The word hung in the air, simple but devastating. Why, Kyle? I repeated, louder this time. Why did you do this? Why betray me? Why give Vanessa access to the condo? Why lie to me? He swallowed hard, avoiding my eyes. Instead, he stared at the grass, the bench, anything but me. Finally, he spoke. Slowly, haltingly. It was about money, he admitted, voice breaking. I couldn't keep up with the mortgage. And Vanessa, she made it easy. She said she'd handle everything. She said I wouldn't have to lift a finger. And I let her. I didn't think it would get this far. I felt my stomach twist. My trust, your lies, the baby's future, I whispered, my voice trembling. All of it. And you, just let her take over? I thought I was helping, he said, almost pleading. I didn't think she'd go this far. I thought we could control it. Fix it before you noticed. I laughed bitterly. Control it? Kyle, you gave her the keys. You sent the emails. You even co-signed forged documents to back her up. How could this ever have been under control? He flinched at my words, head finally tilting up just slightly. His eyes were red, watery, full of shame. But still, he wouldn't look at me. I leaned forward, the phone in my hand steady. Record this, Kyle. Tell me everything. I need to hear it. Every detail. Every word. Don't leave anything out. He exhaled, as if the weight of admitting it all was crushing him. She convinced me, he whispered. Vanessa. She said it was just temporary, that we could split the profits, that it would all be fine. I didn't want to think about you finding out. I didn't want to ruin the pregnancy. I don't know. I thought I was protecting you, but I wasn't. You were protecting her, I interrupted softly, my throat tight. Not me, not our baby, not the life we built together. He hung his head again. I know. I messed up. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how deep it would go. I didn't realize everything. I finished for him. You didn't realize everything. The air felt heavy between us. Kids playing in the distance, joggers passing by, birds chirping, it all seemed normal, mundane. And yet my world had just collapsed and rebuilt itself simultaneously. I pressed record again, holding my phone steady. Every word he spoke was proof. Every confession sealed the truth. You have no idea how guilty I feel, he whispered. I didn't plan for you to find out like this. I swear I didn't. Didn't plan for me to find out? I echoed, voice low, cold. Kyle, you were part of the plan from the beginning. You enabled her. You encouraged her. You facilitated the lies. And now you expect me to forgive you? He flinched. I never expected. You never expected me to discover the truth? I said, my voice cracking but steady. Kyle, I caught everything. You and Vanessa. The emails, the texts, the photo, the forged documents. And now I have you admitting it. In your own words. Silence. Then his voice, small, almost a whisper. You were never supposed to find out. I froze. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Never supposed to find out. Every sleepless night, every tear, every moment I questioned my own sanity, it had all been orchestrated. Carefully, purposefully, deceptively. And he had known. The recording app blinked red. I could see it capturing every ounce of regret, every crack in his composure, every whispered admission. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Instead, I pulled back slightly, holding my phone closer, watching his face as the weight of his own words settled in. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless. For the first time, I felt the control shift back to me. Kyle's lips trembled. I didn't think, don't, I said quietly. Don't even try to justify it. He nodded, still staring at the ground, still unable to meet my eyes. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. I pressed stop on the recording. The file saved automatically. I held it for a long moment, then tucked it carefully into my bag. The confession was complete. Every lie, every plan, every betrayal documented. The weight of grief I'd been carrying didn't disappear, but it shifted. It became resolve. I would no longer be manipulated. I would no longer be silenced. Kyle had given me the final piece, and with it, I was ready to move forward. Kyle's eyes never lifted. His words still hung heavy in the air. You were never supposed to find out, but I had. And now, it was time to take the next step. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension. Charlotte's civil court had that heavy, institutional aroma, the faint mix of coffee, ink, and anxiety. I sat beside Carla Jennings, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. My heart was hammering, my stomach a knot of anticipation and dread. Vanessa sat across the room, immaculate in a tailored blazer, her hair perfect, her expression smug. Kyle sat beside her, shoulders slouched, eyes downcast. He refused to meet mine. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment every painstaking hour of evidence collection, every sleepless night, every ounce of emotional turmoil had been building toward. Carla stood and addressed the judge, a woman with sharp eyes and a demeanor that demanded attention. Your Honor, Carla began, voice steady and clear. We are here today to address serious fraud, identity theft, and forgery, all committed against my client, Hannah Lawson. The evidence will show a coordinated plan to illegally transfer ownership of Miss Lawson's condominium and manipulate both finances and public perception to conceal the crime. The judge nodded, fingers tapping lightly on the bench. Carla called her first witness, me. I stood, shaking slightly, and recounted the events leading up to the trial, the housewarming betrayal, the emails between Kyle and Vanessa, the forged co-investor document, the recordings of Vanessa admitting the plot. The judge listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. I felt my words solidifying in the room, like bricks in a wall that would protect my life from further intrusion. Next, Carla presented the emails, Vanessa's plans, Kyle's messages, every word of their conspiracy laid bare. She paired each one with dates, screenshots, and explanations. Then came the recordings. Vanessa's voice, smug and overconfident, admitting the apartment was never meant to be mine. Every line I had captured played through the courtroom speakers, gasps, murmurs. People leaned forward. Vanessa's confident smirk faltered slightly. Carla didn't miss a beat. Your Honor, these recordings, combined with the forged documents, demonstrate intent, premeditation, and willful deception. They show a deliberate effort to steal property and misrepresent financial transactions. Vanessa's attorney tried to object, claiming she acted in good faith, that she believed she was protecting her family's interests. Carla responded calmly but firmly. There is no evidence Miss Lawson authorized any part of this. Every document bearing her signature was forged. Every email without her consent. Every act was deliberate, and now publicly documented. The judge tapped her gavel lightly. Continue. And will same de sticks tanzeld of the menable. Then came the moment I had dreaded. Vanessa herself. She took the stand, maintaining a veneer of confidence. I never meant any harm, she said, voice sweet but trembling. Carla leaned forward. Miss Blake, do you deny sending an email to a realtor requesting a title transfer under Miss Lawson's name, complete with her forged signature? Vanessa's lips pressed tight. I thought it would be temporary. I didn't intend. Temporary? Carla's voice was sharp now. So forging Miss Lawson's signature and filing a false claim with a real estate agency is temporary? Vanessa's eyes flicked to Kyle, seeking support. He lowered his gaze. Your testimony is inconsistent with the recordings submitted, Carla continued. Your own words, recorded, state the apartment was never meant to be Miss Lawson's. You planned this with Mr. Lawson's knowledge. Do you deny this? The courtroom was silent. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. She faltered, stammering. I didn't mean, Carla's voice cut through, calm but merciless. You intended to remove Miss Lawson from her home and replace her as the legal owner. That is fraud. That is forgery. That is identity theft. Vanessa's face went pale. She couldn't maintain the charade any longer. Kyle's turn came next. He took the stand, visibly uncomfortable. Carla asked him simple, direct questions. Did you provide Vanessa with any documents related to the condo's ownership? Yes, he admitted, voice low. Did you act with Miss Lawson's consent? No, he said quietly. And why did you assist her? It was about the money. Vanessa made it easy. I didn't think she'd go this far. Carla nodded. And you understand now that your actions were illegal? He swallowed. Yes. The judge looked at both of them, eyes sharp and unyielding. Miss Lawson, do you have anything further to submit? I shook my head, my hands finally unclenching. I didn't need to say a word. Every piece of evidence, every confession, every recording spoke for me. Carla summarized the case, connecting emails, recordings, forged documents, and public statements into a clear narrative of betrayal and fraud. By the end, Vanessa was visibly crumbling. Her posture slumped, her confident smirk gone. Kyle avoided looking at her, staring at the floor in shame. The courtroom was tense, every eye on the judge. Even the spectators seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the verdict. Carla gave me a brief nod, a silent reassurance. We had done everything possible to win. The judge's gavel tapped once. "I have reviewed all evidence, testimony, and documentation provided," she said, voice measured, commanding attention. "And I am ready to deliver the ruling." I gripped Trisha's hand, heart pounding, eyes locked on the judge. The room was silent, expectant, and I could feel my entire future hanging on the next words. Then the judge leaned forward and said, "I'm ready to deliver the ruling." The courtroom was quiet, almost impossibly still. Every eye was on the judge. Every person in the room held their breath. I gripped Trisha's hand like it was a lifeline. My knuckles were white, but my heart felt lighter than it had in months. Every sleepless night, every tear, every ounce of frustration and fear, this was the moment that made it all worth it. Carla stood beside me, calm as ever, her eyes locked on the judge. She had done everything perfectly. Every email, recording, forged document, and social media post had been presented with precision. Now it was up to the law. The judge cleared her throat and adjusted her glasses. "After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and documentation presented in this case, I find in favor of the plaintiff, Hannah Lawson." I felt my chest lift in disbelief, like I was breathing for the first time in weeks. All around me, whispers of surprise and relief filled the room. Vanessa's face went pale, lips parted, eyes wide. Kyle's head dropped, shame overtaking any remaining arrogance. The judge continued. "Miss Lawson shall retain full legal ownership of the condominium at 421 Oak Ridge Avenue. Vanessa Blake has no claim or interest in this property. Additionally, Miss Blake's forged documents and fraudulent attempts to co-opt ownership will be referred to the appropriate authorities for criminal investigation." I exhaled slowly, almost in shock. The legal victory was real, solid, irrevocable. Carla squeezed my shoulder. "We did it. You did it." I nodded, tears brimming but refusing to fall just yet. "It's finally over, and they did do it." The judge's words didn't stop there. "Kyle Lawson is found to have participated in fraudulent activities against Miss Lawson and is hereby ordered to pay compensatory damages for violating her privacy, financial rights, and aiding in the attempted fraud." I blinked, processing the magnitude. Every dollar I had feared lost. Every secret betrayed. Every plan to steal my home all reversed. Kyle's shoulders slumped further. He didn't look at me. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And I didn't need him to. His actions had already spoken, and now the law had confirmed them. Vanessa's lawyer stammered something about appeal rights, but the damage was done. Carla shook her head, composed. "We have a solid case. The court's ruling is clear. Any further attempts to contest it without new evidence will only result in additional penalties." I felt vindicated in a way words can't fully capture. All the humiliation, the emotional torment, the betrayal, I had reclaimed it. And more than that, I had reclaimed myself. After the gavel struck, I filed for divorce the same afternoon. It was strange, standing in the county clerk's office, signing the papers that severed my ties with Kyle forever. It felt heavy and liberating all at once. No more lies, no more betrayal, no more pretending that someone who had tried to erase me was part of my life. I was free. Carla and Trisha walked with me out of the courthouse. The late afternoon sun reflected off the wet streets, making Charlotte sparkle like it was celebrating with me. I laughed quietly, almost incredulously. "I can't believe it's done." Trisha grinned. "Believe it. You fought, you documented, you stayed disciplined, and you won. All of it back in your hands." Carla nodded. "And the best part? This isn't just about property. It's about sending a message. Lies, betrayal, and manipulation have consequences. And you, Hannah Lawson, proved that." I when fished philoped faced and face. I felt my stomach twist as I thought about everything. The party, the eviction notice, the smears, the sleepless nights. But for the first time in months, the weight felt lifted. That evening, I returned to my condo. It was mine again. Truly mine. I walked through the rooms, touching the walls, opening drawers, breathing in the air of a home that I had fought tooth and nail to reclaim. The nursery looked untouched. Vanessa had done nothing after the court's ruling. I smiled softly, thinking of my daughter, imagining the tiny feet that would one day run across the hardwood floors. The condo wasn't just a building. It was proof. Proof that resilience and truth could overcome manipulation and deceit. The phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Paula. "Congratulations, Hannah. You did it." And soon, a new chapter begins. I smiled, letting out a long exhale. The battle had been hard, emotional, exhausting, but I had won. And I felt it deep in my bones, the strength of reclaiming my life, my dignity, my home. I locked the door that night, standing in the living room and looking out over the city. 2 months from now, I'd hold a new life in my arms. 2 months from now, my daughter would arrive, untainted by the chaos of betrayal, and I'd be there, stronger than ever, unbroken, unstoppable. 2 months later, I was in labor, and I wasn't alone. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beeping of the monitor and the soft rush of nurses' shoes in the hallway. Outside the window, Charlotte's skyline shimmered under the morning Sunday. It was early, barely 7 a.m., and the world was just beginning to stir. But for me, everything had changed. I looked down at the tiny bundle in my arms. Her cheeks were pink, her eyelids fluttering as she slept, and her fingers so impossibly small wrapped tightly around mine. "Hi, Sadie," I whispered, my voice cracking. "You made it." Did it and talk the condition hast. Trisha was beside me, sitting on the recliner chair with a cup of hospital coffee she hadn't touched. Her hair was a mess, and she hadn't slept, but her smile was brighter than anything I'd seen in months. "She's perfect," she said, "just like her mom." I let out a soft laugh, then wiped the tears that had been silently streaming down my face. This wasn't how I imagined giving birth without Kyle, without the home we thought we'd raise her in. But now that she was here, I wouldn't change a thing. 2 days later, I brought Sadie home, not to the condo, not to the space that once held shadows of betrayal and whispered lies. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of Dilworth. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, warm, and filled with natural light that poured through the windows like quiet hope. Sadie's nursery was painted a soft peach. Trisha helped me hang the little curtains and string up paper stars across the ceiling. No marble countertops, no rooftop view, just peace. And peace, I learned, is everything. The first night home, Sadie cried through most of it. I rocked her against my chest in the nursery, humming lullabies I half remembered from childhood. There was no one else, just the two of us, and that was enough. I looked around the room and realized I had finally created a space where no one had power over me. No more keys handed out behind my back. No forged signatures. No betrayal hiding behind text messages. Just us. Safe. In the following weeks, I turned off my notifications and went quiet on social media. Vanessa's fraud investigation had gone public. Her attempts to save face only made things worse when more forged documentation was discovered. She was being charged with multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. Kyle? He lost his job after his involvement became public. The financial judgment hit hard, and though I didn't take pleasure in his downfall, I felt no guilt, either. They tried to rip everything away from me, but all they did was hand me the chance to start over. Trisha visited every weekend. She helped with Sadie's feedings, brought groceries, and reminded me to rest. Sometimes we'd sit on the couch while Sadie napped, and Trisha would look around the small apartment and say, "You know, this place feels like peace." I always smiled when she said that. It did. One afternoon, a small envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Carla. To Hannah, justice isn't just about punishment. It's about truth reclaiming its place. You didn't just win a legal battle. You reclaimed your life. Be proud of that. CJ. I folded the note and tucked it into a drawer where I kept important things. Sadie's birth certificate, a photo of my mom, and a copy of the judge's ruling. Proof. Not just of survival, but of transformation. I found myself smiling more, breathing deeper, trusting again. Slowly, neighbors would wave as I walked Sadie in her stroller. I made small talk with the barista down the block who remembered my name. Every step I took felt like it was my own again. One night, as I watched Sadie sleep, I whispered, "You'll never have to question your worth. You'll never have to beg to be seen." Because I had already walked through the fire to make sure of it. The betrayal, the lies, the public humiliation, they didn't break me. They built something stronger. The night before Sadie's 1-month milestone, I sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, watching the candlelight flicker. And I wrote these words in her baby journal. They tried to erase me, but they only revealed who I truly was, someone they could never break.